I want to talk to you about errors that startups make when pitching an investor, actually. Okay, whether it is a venture capital firm or an incubator or an accelerator or just, I would just say, an angel investor, okay, or even a business lender, by the way. So, here are the top blunders that you need to avoid if you are a startup making a pitch to a financier. So, number one, start with what you do right away. Don't do that. You want to contextualize the conversation, okay? One common mistake is that founders will fail to clarify what they do in terms of like what would benefit their audience. Because if you just say what I do, you are not able to relate what you do with the pinpoint that your audience has or the pinpoint you're trying to fix in the market, that's actually a big mistake, okay? So to avoid this, make your value proposition clear from the start. One effective strategy is to include a concise description of your product on the first slide. Okay, that's option number one. Option number two, you can structure your pitch around the problem solution framework. Okay, so you want to highlight the specific pain points your customers are facing. Then you want to explain in a methodical way how your product or service addresses those challenges, because the whole thing is you are in the market to address challenges. Okay, that's how you are going to gain traction. So this approach of problem solution will help you align investors and other key stakeholders with your vision from the get-go. The second mistake is forget the perfect pitch order. Lead with your strongest points. Yes, there is such a thing as a general structure of a pitch, and to a certain extent is correct, but you should always start with the problem and your solution and end with the ask, okay? But in reality, it's more important to keep investors interested in your pitch than to follow the established rules. That's why you want to consider actually reordering your slides from the most impressive to the least impressive, even if that means going against the playbook. And number three, tailor your pitch to your audience. Not every VC is a specialist, okay? VC firms working in specific verticals, fintech, AI, or other, shouldn't have issues understanding what you do if you pitch a solution in their area of expertise, right? But let's say you're talking to a generalist VC. You want to assume they don't share the same experience and won't understand industry slang. So always read the investment thesis of a VC before talking to them. If they are a generalist, you want to use simple and straightforward language in your pitch. Avoid technical jargon unless you explain it beforehand. You want to focus your team slide on credibility, not just story. Okay? So this is important. While your personal story may be compelling, investors, if you really think about it, they don't care about it that much. They care more about the skills and experience that make you the right person to lead the project. You want to focus on the most relevant professional experience and importantly, your team's direct relation to the problem you are solving. Why are you the best in this day and age to solve the problems? So, whether it's industry experience or a personal connection to that issue, this background can provide credibility, and you need to establish credibility from the get go. So, another key element to include on your team slide is social proof, right? Specifically, those who have already invested in you. So, if notable investors or funds have already committed, this speaks volumes about your startup's potential. And also remember that traction matters, but honesty matters even more. So, traction is really important when it comes to your pitch deck, right? Because you want to prove that your team is capable of bringing results and learning from mistakes. And in today's highly competitive market, traction is more important than ever. VCs want evidence that your startup can grow, adapt, and capture real demand. But don't ignore traction even if you are pre-launch, okay? You can still show what you have achieved since you started and why this is impressive. And if you don't have enough revenue or users, show field tests, design iterations, and results from user feedback. But be honest, okay? Don't falsify numbers. Okay, don't do that. Don't inflate market size either. Show how you calculate it, okay? Many founders, even experienced ones, quote Statista on their pitch to show their market potential. They tend to pick the biggest numbers available, hoping to impress investors, but size without context, if you think about it, doesn't make your case stronger. It raises doubt, actually. So, another common confusion is that there is some kind of, I would say, some kind of compare and contrast between TAM, SAM, and SOM. Founders often present them as simplified slices of a pie. TAM is the top, then SAM, then SOM, right? But this is not really, you have to really show those numbers with, by the way, TAM, SAM, those are the total addressable market, okay, and others. So you have to really understand that you want to contextualize your information. Another mistake is always end with the ask. So basically, if you have a great presentation but you do not end with the ask, you are missing big. Okay, when you say thank you for your attention at the end, that's all. No, you got to have a CTA, and that CTA has to be around the money that you're asking. Okay, that's really important because honestly, investors are busy. If they actually sat down 15 minutes, 10 minutes to listen to you, they want to see why they did it in the first place. So you got to show that you got to have the why, you got to have the ask, okay? Make it a conversation, not a monologue. This is a big mistake I see startups make when they pitch to investors. They're thinking this is a monologue, this is a presentation. No, make it a conversation, okay? So it's important to understand that your task during the pitch is to keep investors engaged. Even if you have the perfect product, if they lose interest, your chances of receiving funding go down big time. Okay. So what you want to do if you want to really, let's say you want to spark a conversation, you want to ask question. You want to ask question. It's absolutely okay to stop pitching and ask the VCs if everything is clear, such as the product or market size. If investors are your product's target audience, you can also ask them about that. Okay. And you want to talk in milestones, not headcount. So that's a mistake to talk in headcount because it doesn't mean anything. Okay, so it's important to really be clear there. So it shows that you do not have clear goals of your venture. Investors want to know what you will achieve with the funds, not who you want to hire. Explain your plans in terms of revenue and usage for the raised cash. Use this formula to justify why you need funding in the first place. Another mistake that I've seen some startups make when pitching investors is to actually keep things secret, like some things secret. But hey, listen, you have to understand that transparency always beats secrecy. Okay, basically, some founders don't want to disclose too many details about their business and have a short deck with very general info. Those founders are usually afraid that the venture firm might share the deck with other VCs who will then send it to the competitors, okay? But if you cut too many slides out of your deck and you fear that your competitors will read it, you are not going to succeed, okay? Even if they see your hypothesis and vision, they won't have all your insights and expertise, okay? Because as it's often said in the industry, idea is nothing, execution is everything, okay? You also want to go clean and clear. Skip the fancy design. I mean, it's all good to have fancy designs, fancy formats, all those graphic, whatever, okay? But you don't need a designer to prepare a presentation for your pitch. The whole idea here is to contextualize and keep your investors interested, okay? That's the most important, to keep them interested. So and nowadays the good thing is you have a lot of software tools that really help you have clean design. You even have AI tools that can really create a design for you. You don't have to do it yourself, actually. So if you're not artistically inclined, you can actually have others take care of it. So you can either go with a clean design, nothing complicated, or just use software to have it for you. Okay. So in many cases, fancy design, we've seen our research, achieves the opposite because it distracts investors from you and your speech. So not having any design is also bad. You want your pitch to be visually neutral, but don't make it full of graphs and long paragraphs of text. Your slides should be simple with minimal text and two visuals maximum on one slide. That way you can keep investors hooked and really interested in your storytelling, because it's all about storytelling. You don't want them to actually veer off your storytelling. Otherwise, they will lose interest, and long story short, they're not going to fund you at all. Going back to the contextualization thing that I've been telling you, data without explanation is just noise. A lot of startups think that they have to really put a lot of data on slides to actually impress investors. If you put data but you don't contextualize it, you're not really adding value to investors or even adding value to your overall presentation. Okay, so you build your product hypothesis with data, prove your traction with data, and show market potential with data, right? You show the TAM, the SUM, and the SAM. But that's a lot of data in your pitch. So make sure to explain what it means, because investors won't understand what you are trying to say with data without guidance. Because again, remember that investors are pitched several presentations a day or a week or a month. And so it doesn't mean that they don't have experience in your field. Even if they do, they still need to have some kind of context around your data, because you're the only one who understands that data better, because you worked on it. You are the one who came up with that data. Okay. So that's important. I mean, you might explain the graphs during your speech, but not having explanations in writing on the slide might be problematic. So always add conclusions to graphs and figures. Okay. And also, you want to paint a clear picture of the competition and your edge. This is not the time to denigrate your competition, not at all. If you denigrate your competition, you're actually showing that you're weak. You do not want to denigrate your competition. You just want to focus on your fortes, your edge. Okay, so don't include a slide about competitors in your pitch, and forget that investors don't understand your industry as well as you do. Okay, so you want to understand that you are showing. You can show maybe your competitors. You can show what they're good at and what they're missing, like a pros and cons, and your pros and cons too. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's all about you adding value. It's about you actually plugging the gap in the market, right? Bringing a solution that hasn't been found at all, and that you are the one actually implementing that solution. So it's all about your value. It's all about your competitive edge. It's all about your ability to actually to solve the pain points that customers are having now. At the end of the day, investors want to see clarity, confidence, and a realistic path forward, and that's what those recommendations I'm giving you can really bring to your pitch. Also, another mistake that you have to really avoid when pitching an investor is to fundraise to hire the essential team. Let's say your developers, your marketing team, your sales team. You don't want to really fundraise for that, because you can incentivize those staff members through equity shares, through other ways actually. So if you have to, let's say, attract a CTO, a CMO, a CLO, all those, or even a growth hacker, you have to really understand that it's not money that you have that has to really incentivize them. Okay, because those professionals, they're very ambitious. They're usually very smart, and they know that if you have a startup and they see potential and they decide to join your team, they're actually seeing the potential in a long run actually. So they'll be more interested if you incentivize them with equity. Now, of course, you're not going to pay them totally like only with equity, but equity should be a large portion. Equity distribution should be a large portion of their compensation. So don't actually go to investors to raise 50 grand or $100,000 or even $1 million. So you can just assemble a team of winners. You can hire people, I mean, even if you have $1 million, depending on where you are at in the country, I mean, $100 million, if you're paying those top producers, let's say 70 grand, you can't really hire more than 15 people actually. So this is not the right strategy to really fundraise, to raise funds, to actually hire people. Also, requesting an NDA. This is actually a very, very basic mistake. Okay, investors don't sign NDAs to see your pitch deck. No matter how groundbreaking your product is, no matter how many patents you can get, no matter whatever you think your product is super, 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 you need to understand that basically your product without funding is nothing. Your product without funding is nothing. Okay. So a pitch deck is supposed to be an introduction to your business. It shouldn't dive deeply into sensitive economics or technology aspects. That comes later, actually. So if you are concerned, somebody can steal your idea and beat you to market by just looking at your pitch deck, then that risk will continue to exist when you even launch. Like I said, idea is something, but execution is everything. Remember, okay? Companies don't succeed because of ideas. Actually, they succeed because of execution, building great products and bringing them to market. Okay, execution is what really matters here. And also, most investors look at hundreds of deals every month, so it's a terrible liability to have NDAs with all those companies. Can you imagine? VCs go through hundreds of pitch decks every month, and if they have to sign NDAs, what kind of liability do they have to carry? That's really huge. Another mistake you want to avoid here is to approach the wrong kind of investors. If you're a startup, you want to make sure that you have investors who are interested in your niche, who are interested in your product or service, who are interested in the kind of sector you're in. Okay, not all companies can and should approach venture capital investors. Okay, if you want to raise money from Silicon Valley type investors, you need to have a business that can scale to say $100 million a year in revenue. It needs to have a tech variable aspects and small human capital requirements. So that excludes, if you think about it, most consulting businesses as well as companies without a tech advantage. Silicon Valley investors putting money on a seed stage round company will generally invest in the range of half a mil to $1 million in exchange for 15 to 25% of the business. Okay, so and this is usually done through a convertible note. They expect the business to increase its value to 10x within 5 years, which requires exponential growth. So companies that don't fit this profile can access other types of financing like loans, and they can also raise capital from an investor willing to come in as a 50-50 partner and to be directly involved in the business, right? So there's also stuff like Kickstarter, which is really ideal for hardware products, like tangible products. Okay, so it's all about what? It's all about understanding the kind of business you have in your hands. Okay, what it is and what it's not. Also, if you're trying to raise too much money during your pitch deck presentation, that's also a big mistake. Okay, because raising money is diluting your company ownership. You always want to raise the least amount of money possible, and that's why a good financial model is important. So you have a clear idea what's really happening, and you should actually prepare your cap tables before and after the the round. Okay, and actually don't show that you're desperate. This is also another mistake you want to avoid because investors like healthy, fast-growing companies. They are drawn to the promise of great returns. Few investors will want to join to save a business from bankruptcy because that's usually bad business. The least you need them, the better position you have, not only to pitch the company, but to have the leverage to negotiate better terms. Okay, so that's something important from a credibility point of view, but also from I would say from an efficiency point of view. So as an epilogue into this conversation, I'll share with you mistakes startups make when pitching investors, and I give you the top blunders, about 18 of them. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.